Godlike.
Silence Tech deserves a damn good award.
Hi everyone, it's Mark from Silenced Tech, back again with another video. This time we're checking out a real special case from Cooler Master, the Cosmos C700P, which has a tempered glass side panel with curved edges, an invertible motherboard tray and fantastic RGB lighting, although we'll get more into all that a little later in the video. First of all, if we look at the pricing, the case will set you back a fair amount, but you get a whole lot for your hard-earned money. In the US, the Cosmos C700P will cost $299, in the UK £274.99 and €299 in Europe. Those are some pretty hefty prices. The C700P is clearly aimed towards an enthusiast, and it's certainly going to be interesting to see what crazy builds those modders come up with in the future. Every panel on this case is completely removable, leaving just the bare chassis. Even the motherboard tray can be taken out, making installation easier. Not only that, the modular system allows for an inverted and rotatable layout, so you'll be able to have the build facing on the left outwards, or you can have it set with a 90 degrees orientation. What interests me most personally about this case though is the world's first dual curved tempered glass side panel. It's taken Cooler Master a lot of effort to get this side panel right in the manufacturing process, but boy oh boy was it worth it. There's no visual mounting points, the panel just sits cleanly thanks to the sturdy hinge on the inside. Also, the tempered glass side panel can be flipped to the other side of the chassis if you decide to invert the build layout, as currently the Cosmos C700P only ships with one dual curved glass panel. Thankfully though, Cooler Master will be selling a glass panel separately on their website. The new Cosmos C700P has a much more modern look compared to the Cosmos 1 or 2. The handles and feet have a sleeker and more futuristic design. Made from solid aluminium or aluminum, the feet of course provide support to the massive 20+ kilogram chassis, and the handles perfectly match the feet, giving symmetry to the top and bottom, and without the handles you would have an extremely hard time moving the case around. The front panel of this case is easily removable, and although it looks like metal, it's actually made of plastic, and that's a bit of a shame considering the price of this case. Sure, it keeps the weight down, but what's some extra pounds when it already weighs so much? I just believe a metal front panel would have finished this case off nicely. The dust filters on the top and front are easily removable as well, and like the rest of the case they are very high quality. There's no gaps, and once they're both in place, it will help keep dust out as much as possible. Checking out the front I/O, it's very well laid out and it looks fantastic, especially when the light bar around it is on. It consists of a fan control button that toggles between low and high. Next there's a reset button, a power switch and an RGB control button that toggles between various modes. And lastly, the connections are 4 USB 3.0 ports, 1 USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type-C port and front audio jacks. The RGB lighting on the Cosmos C700P is probably the best case lighting I've ever seen on any case ever. There's light bars surrounding the front I/O, directly under the handles and projecting down on the case's feet. It's bright. The lighting also looks extremely clean and even, and I found each colour to give a very vibrant and accurate colour representation. The button on the front I/O allows you to choose between 7 static colours and a colour cycle effect. If you look inside the rear of the case, behind one of the 2.5-inch drive bays, there is a fan and RGB controller, and you'll be able to connect up to 6 fans including PWM plus all of the case lighting. Well, in fact, the case lighting comes already installed. There's also an RGB port available that you can use to connect to your motherboard's RGB header, and depending on your board manufacturer, the cable will allow you to control the lighting on the case with a particular piece of software. For example, the board I currently have installed in this build is from MSI, and I can use the MSI's Mystic Light app to control all of my case lighting and also Cooler Master's RGB fans, so they're all in sync at the same time. Awesome stuff. Once I removed the tempered glass side panel, the first thing I noticed was the shrouds. It's an interesting approach from Cooler Master, although I'm not entirely sure I'm sold on it. I appreciate the layout, but I just wish the PSU shroud went all the way to the front of the case and the top section cut off here. Then we could have had the option to remove the top section, leaving a completely closed off PSU shroud that hid all of the cables. Also, the PSU shroud doesn't go all the way to the back of the case, leaving a lot of the front I/O cables visible. Removing the shrouds, we get a much better look inside. The case supports for motherboards Mini ITX, Micro ATX, ATX and eATX, and here you can see the mounting points for swapping over the motherboard tray to create an inverted layout. There's 8 PCIe expansion slots inside the case, and for drive bays at the front you can fit a 5.25-inch drive, and there's 2 directly behind the front shroud, and they both support either a 2.5-inch or 3.5-inch drive. Lastly, on the back we find 2 2.5-inch SSD drive bays, but one is being used for the RGB and fan controller. The case comes included with 3 1200 RPM 140mm fans, and they aren't RGB like the ones I have currently installed. Overall fan support, the case has room for 3 120mm or 140mm fans at the front, and the same goes for the top of the case, and you can fit one 120 or 140mm fan at the rear and bottom of this case. Liquid cooling options are plentiful. You'll be able to fit a 360mm rad at the top, a 240mm rad at the bottom, a 420mm rad at the front, and a 140mm rad at the rear. Clearances on the GPU side, there's enough room for a GPU with a maximum length of 320mm with the hard drive cages installed. Without them installed, it's 490mm. The case allows for a CPU cooler up to 198mm, so pretty much every CPU cooler on the market. Noise levels of this case, overall they seem extremely good. There's even some noise dampening on the front cover, and I will let you judge how the case sounds at idle and under full load while gaming. As you heard, noise levels were extremely good, and the airflow, because the case is full tower, was great as well. My GPU and CPU temps were a lot lower compared to any of my other mid-tower builds. Overall, the build quality of the Cosmos C700P is fantastic, A1 all round. Premium doesn't even cut it, and I can put my channel on the line when I say this is the best case I've ever got my hands on regarding build quality, and it doesn't disappoint considering its high asking price. One area I would have expected a little bit more is in the cable management department. In the rear, it would have been nice if it had some Velcro straps to tie those cables down. Luckily, there is a cover in the rear that can hide most of those cables. Although if you then remove the shrouds in the front of the case, all those wires in the back become exposed. That said, the grommet holes are well placed and it makes installing the cables very easy. Building inside the C700P was very straightforward from start to finish. My simple build I put in took no longer than half an hour. PC builders with more time than me will love this case as well. The case is built for water cooling in mind. There isn't any limits with the C700P, only your imagination. And like I said earlier, some of the builds that's going to be created is going to be jaw-dropping. Finishing off the review, my final award is going to be gold for the C700P, and I hope you enjoyed my review. My name's Mark from Silence Tech. Goodbye.